with us earlier today. I'm Cecilia Lavin, and I'm the host of this in-event live stream from IBC in Amsterdam. I'm still here, haven't gone anywhere. And now I am joined by a very experienced gentleman who's traveled very far to be here, all the way from the States. Renard Jenkins,
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Glad to
coming
be
and
here.
joining us here today. So you are the Senior Vice President of Production Integration and Creative Technology Services at Warner Brothers Discovery.
That is correct. Yes.
That
Yes,
sounds like an amazing job.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a very fun job.
I can imagine. So you and your team, I've got some stats here and they're pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You oversee a team that supports 23,500 cast and crew members.
That is correct. Yeah.
And you also oversee 8,500 plus content hours.
Right,
That's
right,
a lot
right.
of content, right?
Yeah. We stay busy.
You're
But,
not sitting there twiddling your thumbs.
No. I always call our team, small and mighty.
Ooh,
we're about
nice.
75 people, but we cover the globe.
Wow.
Our remit demands that we take care of productions wherever they are.
Yeah.
And so that's what we focus on.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I read about, obviously, is that the Warner Brothers teams is obviously responsible for exploring and then obviously successfully implementing emerging and new creative technologies.
Yeah.
One of them really caught my attention because I don't personally know a lot about it. It's Neuro Technology.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, neurotech and biometrics are what we're focused on right now, and it is taking the sort of the brain reaction of an individual and using that data to help us create better content. So we like to use it with some of our focus groups, and we will get someone sort of geared up, and we will pay attention to sort of their biometrics. We'll pay attention to the amount of sweat. We'll pay attention to their eye movement. We'll pay attention to their brain waves. We'll pay attention to their breathing, to their heart rate, all of these different things as they view or as they interact with our content, because that team also creates virtual characters. So when we're experiencing with our virtual characters and people are actually learning to speak with them in a conversational way, we like to gauge the reaction of a person when they realize that who they're talking to is not a human being. And when we tell them that, no, you've just been having a conversation with a virtual character that we created, this person does not exist in reality, gauging how they react to those types of things. And what we do is we take that data and it helps us to make our content more engaging to our customers, because we now know what triggers their reaction or the reaction that we're trying to get.
That's incredible because, a lot of the conversations I've been having here is talking around, obviously, engagement and interactivity, as well as storytelling.
Yes.
And all of that supports that, right? Because
Yes,
you want to see how people feel emotionally and actually, gathering that data rather than writing something on a piece of paper, right?
Right. And we have a lot of different ways of doing it. We've got, push button activation and things of that nature. But what Brian Wellner, who is leading that charge for us, what he's kind of encouraging his team to do is think deeper about how we actually consume content. And let's figure out every single data point that we can pull out of our out of our subjects as they're experiencing that content. So Brian and the Neurotech team, they are doing an awesome job in that space. And I get to sit back and sort of watch this happen, and then get to play around with it too. So it's really cool to see, all this stuff coming to fruition, and they're an awesome team.
Well, obviously, technology changes so quickly, right? And I think we've seen that at least over the last 2 years, right? I think the pandemic has pushed us to make some, necessary developments that may have taken longer before. How has that impacted your role, and like, what is it? Is it more exciting right now, or is it more difficult?
It's all it's really about how you position it in your mind. I look at it as exciting because what it did is, as technologists, we had been thinking about a lot of these tools and a lot of these solutions for years, but it was very hard to get sort of funding or to get a little bit of buy-in for us to move forward with them. But we were pushed by the pandemic to have to actually say, we've got to do our business in a different way.
Yeah.
We've got to learn how to collaborate, across the globe without actually being together.
Yeah.
How do we do this? So it allowed us to take a lot of these ideas that were on the shelf and actually put them into action. So I think what it did is it pushed us forward. It caused us to accelerate a lot of our thinking. And what that's done also is it's allowed some of those individuals who had what we would have considered to be, sort of crazy ideas, to actually get an opportunity to sit down at the table and explain what that crazy idea is, because it may not be so crazy now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been awesome. I think these last 2 years, with the exception of the death and destruction of the pandemic and COVID, what it's done is it allowed us to move so much faster, and it allowed us to move so much further.
Yeah.
And now, as we start to look at these things, we have a little bit of a green field in front of us.
Yeah.
So that we can say, okay, let's take a breath, because we've kind of caught up.
Yeah.
What else can we do?
Yeah.
How much further can we take this?
I think one thing it's also taught us is being agile, right?
Yes.
I think before people found it scary sometimes to try something new, whilst I think the pandemic pushed us that we had to do it.
Yes.
So we actually, to some extent, overcame that fear of change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there must still be challenges, right?
Yeah.
What's the sort of some of the recent challenges you've experienced or seen in the industry?
Well, I think, when you're doing things, remotely, when you're starting to actually compress video, you start to get into timing issues.
Yes.
And syncing issues, and those things, they still exist.
Yeah.
We're still working our way through all of that. Another thing that I think from a human aspect that I've seen happen is that individuals have lost the ability to manage their time.
Yeah.
Because people know that you're like in place.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, you know what? I'm not gonna wait and give them 15 minutes after this meeting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna book a meeting right after that one.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you realize that you've been sitting down for like 4 hours in meetings. You've been on camera, and you're wondering why you are so tired and drained.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the downfalls of this, and we've got to kind of get control back with that.
Yeah.
But I think from a technology standpoint, the timing thing is one of those things we've got to figure out. We've got to get over it. The other thing is that there's only so much that we can really do remotely.
Yeah.
Eventually, to collaborate fully and to have a team feeling, it's great to be back on set.
Yeah. Of course.
The feeling of that family feeling that you get when you're on set, you're working through a production. You go from beginning and you get all the way down to the end, and everybody's hugging each other. They're happy that we finally got here, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, we just, created something that never existed before.
Yeah.
And now we're getting ready to work on putting it out into the world. That part of it, I think, we miss.
Yeah.
And even me as an introvert who was perfectly happy to work remotely and work at home and stay in my little, my bunker.
Yeah.
I do miss that feeling of, wow, we've just done something amazing, and we did it together as a team. So I'm really into that.
Well, I think it's one of those, you can never take away the human interaction that we need.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there.
Yeah.
What I like about the new sort of working patterns is that we all become a bit more flexible and can carry on these relationships.
Yeah.
Whilst previously I found it that if you couldn't meet in person, people wouldn't make a connection.
Right.
But now you can still make a connection in a virtual environment. And when you then finally meet, it's like, oh my God, right?
Yeah. Everyone tells me, they're like, you are much taller than I thought you were. And I think it's because I sit low in my seat.
Yeah.
And they're like, you are much taller. And I'm like, no, not really.
Oh, well, it's perception, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well, you're absolutely, and some people might have a completely different personality on screen versus what they are in real life.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm actually exactly the same. I know that people like, you're loud, you're chatty. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. So you've been in the industry for a long time. I'm not going to say how long. We'll keep that secret.
It's fine.
But you've gone through obviously a lot of different, changes. Are there some of the things that you remember and that you're like profoundly, like you love that period of change where we transitioned from one, use of technology to another, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I started out in audio,
Okay.
and audio was very hardware based, very you use physical media and all these things. And I remember the transition to digital audio. And I remember when we transitioned to actually digital audio workstations. That was a fascinating time because all of a sudden, the your gear set started to get much smaller.
Yes.
What you had to take with you on location began to shrink, which was great because, for a little while they would always say that, location audio was a young man's game, because you got to carry all this gear, you got to have all this stuff with you. And I was really happy when things started to get a little smaller. I said, okay, I can extend my career a little bit longer. So this is awesome. But also it allowed us to be able to do things with audio that normally we could do in an analog way, but there was a lot of process involved. And now we were starting to look at software, and we're looking at how you could actually do that in a much faster way. So that was one thing that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then you had video sort of following that same path, and you also had the transition from SD to HD happening along that same time frame. And to be involved in all of that was really cool. But what I really felt that the biggest change that I have had the opportunity to be involved in was changing the idea of how we create content and starting to look at it as a supply chain. And starting to look at it as a pipeline, and started to, create software defined workflows, flexible and dynamic workflows. And then on top of that, all of the changes with the resolution, but not just resolution, but also our dynamic range. Digging into high dynamic range and what that actually brings to us. How can we make the experience better for all of those that we serve with this content? Those changes have just been leaps and bounds, and I've had the opportunity in my career to be at the front end of all of those things. And it's just been, it's been really, really cool to look back and say, wow, I got the chance to work with some of the people that I looked up to when I was, in university, when I was actually reading their papers and reading their articles and saying, wow, this is great. People like Hugo Gaglione and Larry Thorpe, these guys have been like at the, they're like at the pinnacle of our industry. And I get to sit down and work with them, and they look at me as a peer. And sometimes I get a little emotional about it because I'm like, wow, they see me as a peer when I see them as sort of like, what I would like to aspire to be. So it's great. It's been great. Just the constant change, the constant innovation that we have in this business is what I feel, even with all the gray hair, it keeps me young. It really does. It makes me excited to go to work every day. It makes me want to give everyone on my team an opportunity to experience the same thing. So how can we come up with something crazy? How can we come up with something that no one else has thought of? And then let's go out and see if we can do it.
You know what? And that's the reason why I came into event tech, because it changes all the time, and that's what makes it exciting. You learn something every day.
You do. You really do.
But you're talking about these people that you look up to. I know that you've been a mentor to loads of people who's gone, who's moved on to become respected leaders in their fields that obviously looks up to you. And I know that's very important to you, to educate and to sort of expand, to share your knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that makes that so special to you?
Man, I when I got into this business, I didn't have anyone in this space who looked like me. I didn't have anyone who, I could really kind of connect with, who could understand the good and the bad that I had to deal with in my early career. So what I like to do, and what I always said, is that there are two things. This industry has a reputation for sort of churning through people really, really quickly, and and kind of, just burning them out. And sometimes it can be a little, unpleasant. And I wanted to do two, like I said, two things. I wanted to make sure that I got in this industry and I never participated in that sort of activity.
Yeah.
I never want to disrespect anyone. I never want to hurt anyone. I never want to put anyone in a position where they feel bad. But then I also wanted to create a space where I could be that person that I didn't have to look up to. And it's not about ego. It's really about saying, hey, I have an opportunity to help other people get into this business. And I have an opportunity to help them when they get in this business to stay in this business.
Yeah.
Because I believe that it's really fun. And I also believe that it's something that a lot of people don't know about. They don't know, they know the director, they know the actors, they know the producers and the writers and sort of the glamour positions of our industry. But they don't know those of us in the background who are working the science in order to enable the art.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to make sure that I'm an advocate for that, but I also want to make sure that I create a space where people feel comfortable, where they know that they can grow in this industry and they know that they have a place and they know that they're welcome.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I do with my teams is I always tell them the one thing that I want you to do is have fun.
Yeah.
We didn't get in this business to be stressed out or to be bogged down with everything. If we wanted to do that, we could have gone and had a really high stress job in some other industry. We got in this business because we wanted to enjoy ourselves and do things that we were passionate about. And I'm passionate about innovation. I'm passionate about inclusion. And I'm passionate about people. And those things for me are like, that's what drives me every single day. And that's why I love what I do.
Well, you can clearly see it. I feel the passion from you when you talk about this, and that is when it's genuine passion. And you mentioned obviously a lot of key things there, and I must say a lot of that will also come back to company culture, right?
Yeah.
Because no man can do it on their own, right? It has to go that. And as far as I work with Warner Brothers, so I know that they have a very, very strong inclusive, company culture that's all about the people.
Yeah.
So I guess that goes hand in hand, right?
Right.
It supports you and your mission.
It does. And I always say that's a part of who I am. That's what I do. That's what I bring to the table. If I'm ever working in a place where that is not possible, then to be honest, I don't want to be there.
No.
If I can't help affect that change, then I need to find somewhere where I can go where I can be me. And I can be with teams who work like me. And I have to say that I knew I was at the right place when I inherited a team. And when I inherited that team and I started to get to know them, I noticed that they supported one another.
Nice.
They were not in competition with each other.
Yeah.
The only competition that they had was how quickly can we solve this issue for our customer? And how do we do it together? And I said, this is the right team for me. This is the place I need to be. These are my people. This is my tribe. And it has been awesome to work with all of them. I have a wonderful group of direct reports and an incredible team. There's just nothing that I don't think that they can do.
I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of people online who wants to join your team after your talk here.
I'll be happy to have them.
If we say that there's someone who's listening in right now who's fairly new in the industry and maybe a bit like yourself when you started off, maybe don't feel like they're exactly feeling at home in it, but they're really passionate about it, they don't know what to do. Like, if you would give yourself advice those years ago, again, I won't say how long,
it's all right.
What would you say to yourself? Like, what piece of advice would you give to someone right now?
That's a really good question. That's a very good question. There's a lot of advice that I would give myself. One thing I think I would say is, don't be afraid of change.
Nice.
Don't be afraid to move.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling that you're connected where you are, look for a place where you're connected.
Yeah.
Look for a place where you feel welcome. Also, don't be afraid to do your thing.
Yeah.
That thing that you have sort of in the back of your mind that you believe could be the next big idea. Don't be afraid to work on it and to sort of, build it out,
Yeah.
you know, and then I would say trademark it,
Yeah.
copyright it, and then share it, you know. And I say that because earlier in my career, there were some things that I was working on that if I had trademarked it, I'd probably be a very, very rich person.
Oh, wow.
But you know, I would say that to a younger person, like, make sure you protect your ideas, so that you're not afraid to share them, you know, and then protect yourself and your sort of your mental well-being, and make sure that you are in a place where you are psychologically safe. Those things are the most important things that you can do, because if you can get all of those things in place, it opens up the opportunity for you not to have to worry about all of those things, but then you can actually concentrate on those really cool things that you have to offer and what you do on your day to day. And I think that's probably what I would say to myself.
Well, I think that is a very sound advice. It's building the pillars, and then you can sort of build everything out.
Yeah.
So to finish us off,
Sure.
I have one last question. This might open a can of worms.
Okay.
But
all right.
What do you think is coming up? Like, what is it? What is exciting you about the future in this industry? Have you seen anything cool, that you can share? That maybe you've trademarked it.
Yeah. There are a lot of cool things that are coming. Some of them are cool. Some of them are a little scary. I think the creation of virtual characters is very interesting to me. The idea that using GPT-3 and soon GPT-4 to actually create conversational characters that you can interact with in almost a human way, I think that is really, really interesting. But it's also very scary, you know, because that could go wrong very quickly. So I think that's really cool. I think I think sort of the pixel race in itself is starting to slow down a little bit. So that's not as big of a thing. But the ability for us to look at all of this wonderful technology that we have, pull it together in sort of this complete way that will allow us to do everything that we do much faster, much more efficient, and of course, you know, much more cost effective. I think that's really interesting as well. How do we actually pull all of this together? You know, we got big dreams, but you know, how do we see this really come together? So I think those are things that I'm really, really interested in. And there are a lot of great companies that are doing some really fun stuff. The Movie Labs Vision 2030, like I talked about this morning, is one roadmap there. But there are others that are out there. And if we can bring it all together, I think we're going to be, you know, we'll be an industry that will last. You know?
Collaboration.
Collaboration is all. That's where it all is.
And I think you're absolutely right. Some technologies are, you know, exciting, but also really scary.
They really are.
You know, at the same time. I know, like, I get these emails every month where Google notifies me where I've been. And I'm like, I'm loving it, right? To some extent, I'm like, oh yeah, I was there, and then I was like. But that is also really scary because that is just literally tracked.
That's right.
From, like, you know,
from any device, any camera, anywhere in this world, you know, you can be found.
I know.
You know, which is good in case you get lost.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. I was just about to say.
But not so good if you're, you know, trying to live your life.
Yeah. Well, luckily we know we're in Amsterdam, right? So, well, Renard, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I'm sure our audience has as well. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. Great. Glad to be here.
Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. I hope you found this conversation with Renard equally as interesting as I have. Take his advice. If you have an idea, go trademark it right now, probably, and then share it with us. We would love to hear about it.
That's right.
Join us very shortly for another interesting interview here from IBC in Amsterdam. See you soon. Amazing.